Hey guys, this is Joe from Analog Archive back with another video. The video today is going to be a little bit different than what I've done in the past. Instead of me just showing some recent finds that I've had in like the last month or so, I want to talk about a new piece of kind of vinyl equipment, vinyl accessory really, that I've had for the last maybe month that I've been experimenting with, and I finally kind of felt comfortable enough to jump on and be able to talk about it. And maybe this will persuade you or at least provide you with some more information on this, because I know that before I kind of tried this out, there was not a lot of information on exactly what to kind of do. So that's going to be part of the video, along with me just kind of showing you how what it is and what it's able to do. So it won't be a video without showing records. So I want to kind of talk about that, but to kind of not leave people hanging, the video today is going to be about the vinyl flattening device that's called the Record Pi. For a long time, or at least the last few years, there's been a vinyl flattener on the market that's just called the Vinyl Flat. There's a lot of people that have that. I know like Bob Bradley had that. He made a video maybe a year or two ago that was talking about that. I know there's a lot of shops that I've kind of gone to that have the vinyl flat device that they've used to flatten warped records. And I, for the longest time, was contemplating pulling the trigger on that. And then all of a sudden I got, I think, an ad on like Facebook about this new vinyl flattening machine that was called the Record Pi. So I went to the website, I kind of looked at it. I already knew that I would like to be able to flatten some records, because I had at that point probably close to 10 records that I could just kind of think off that I could kind of come up with pretty quickly off the top of my head that were warped, and they all played through, but just aesthetically, but also it just seemed like over time those records were just, they were just going to cause damage to my needle and everything like that, along with, again, aesthetically. I mean, having this huge, what almost looks like a tidal wave as the record is rotating on the platter is just not something, especially for me, I didn't really like that. So I was always looking for some type of vinyl flattening device. I've tried giving records to stores in Rochester to flatten, and I really haven't seen the results that I'd like. I brought one to a place in Rochester that the guy tried to flatten it, and they returned it to me. I wasn't charged anything for it, but they didn't flatten it. It wasn't even flat. So it didn't work, at least that first time. So again, this video is going to be showing some of the aspects of this newer record flattening device. I don't know how long this has been on the market. It seems like it hasn't been around a super long time, just based off of the reviews that you can see on the website. But I'll kind of get to the results in just a little bit. Also, at the end of the video, I will be putting up at least, I think there's 3 videos that I've taken of a before and after. And hopefully you guys can see kind of the benefits of that. So some records that were warped that I've tried to flatten. First one, Donald Byrd, Bird in Hand. This is an original mono. This came from that amazing Blue Note collection that the Bop Shop in Rochester had gotten in 2 years ago. Had a slight warp on the A side. The record itself was VG++, almost pretty much near mint. But it did have that warp on the A side, and I really, again, have kind of held off trying to hopefully one day flatten it. So this one, I have been able to successfully flatten this. I think I only put it in the flattener once, and it was flat. So that one I had great success with. Another one I had some great success with, Last few months I picked this up. This is Complete Communion, Don Cherry. Similar situation. The B side had a warp. The warp on this one was actually much more substantial than what it was for the Bird in Hand. It was a very noticeable warp, and even though it played through, it seemed again over time that it could cause some damage to the turntable. And I mean, Bird in Hand along with this one were great records that I really wanted to flatten if I had the ability to. So that was that one. And then some more recent finds, I'll kind of just show these quick. These are ones I just showed in my May vinyl finds video. So we got Tricks of the Trade, Frank Lowe, and then this one was Local Color, or Living Color? Local Color, Peter Lemmer. This is on ESP disc. Both of these were warped. This one especially had a very large warp. It was a very gradual warp where, like, as it went around your platter, it kind of went up, and then it stayed up, and then it went down. So it wasn't like a quick up and down. This one flattened just one cycle in the record pie. It was flat. This one flattened the first time. Pretty good results, but there was still a little just kind of edge type warp to it, just very small, like kind of lip still to it. So I hit it the second time with the flattener, and it was a great success. So these are just, again, a handful of records. I had some other Blue Note records. I know, like, I had a Joe Henderson record, Mode for Joe, that I had for like a year and a half, that had a warp on the one side, and wanted, again, just like the other ones, wanted to flatten it if I could. That one was a more substantial warp as well. Had success with that. I think that one needed 2 cycles in the system, but I want to kind of explain now the process of how the vinyl flattening machine itself, the record pie, actually works. So I'm going to switch it around to kind of the setup that I have behind me, where the vinyl or the record pie itself is set up. All right, so this is the record pie. This is kind of like this almost like briefcase type thing that you were given when you pull it out of the box. You've also got these adapters that allow you to do, like, the kind of the big hole that you see here is if you had a dish warp. So if kind of the center label area was warped, they kind of provide you with that. There's also just a general 33 adapter kind of sleeve that's in there. When you open it up itself, you'll have the record pie itself. So you have these kind of real heavy aluminum plates. When you unscrew this, there's a washer that comes with it. Kind of make sure, obviously, you don't lose that. And then you've got the plate itself. It's pretty heavy. It's hard to do with one hand, but you've got this kind of metal plate. And then that is the kind of adapter, whatever you would like to call it. There's 2 of them, so there's kind of one below the other. You would just, difficult to do with, again, with one hand, but I took one of them off, and then you've got the other one, so you'd obviously put the record on there, and you would put the piece back on, put the washer on. Oops. You turn this, and it just has to be tight enough, depending on your level of kind of how tight you want to go. You can hold, there's like a piece that's on the back. You can kind of put your finger on that while you twist with the other hand. Behind that, what you're actually going to then do is you'll open this up. There's just like a Velcro, and you'll put the record pie itself into there. The heat comes through here, through kind of the device itself, that then connects to the actual power source. So right now I don't have it really connected all the way. If you push this in all the way, you'll see that. It's hard to see with the glare, but you'll see that it starts to heat up. So the top number represents the temperature that it actually is at that point, and then your target. Now, the one thing that I will say is that the target temperature that they recommend in the directions is 125 degrees for 2 hours. I tried, I knew that I had records that were a little bit more substantially warped, and I had a feeling that 125 for 2 hours just wasn't really going to maybe kind of work right off the bat. So I started with 130 degrees for 2 hours. The first record that I did was actually pretty substantially warped, and it ended up actually being a record that I have not to this day be able to actually fix in terms of, I've gotten it down a bit in terms of the size of the warp, but it's still warped. Now, I did allude to earlier in the video about the fact that what I think maybe makes the Record Pi stand out compared to other vinyl flat devices is the fact that not only can you yourself control the exact temperature that you want the Record Pi to be kind of heated up to, but you know exactly what temperature it's at. I know that with like the vinyl flat, that it was just like a low, medium, high, and that depending on maybe the size of the warp and how much you really needed to be done, determine the temperature. Now with this, it just seems like there's more of a regulation of the temperature. Not only does the temperature stay at that exact range, but again, the ability for you to be able to target a certain temperature that you want it to be at 130 degrees, or you want it to be at 135 degrees, or whatever it happens to be, that you have the ability to control that versus, again, other devices where maybe you're not really able to set a specific temperature. I've also seen from people that have shown videos on other record flattening devices that like halfway through the heating cycle, you actually have to like flip the device around so that the heating is more uniform. They do say with the directions along with online that if the record was warped in a certain spot, like on the actual vinyl, that they recommend putting that closer to where the heat source is. So again, like this is where the heat enters the actual kind of bag itself. So it's kind of advantageous for you to put the maybe part of the record that's the most warped, or maybe that's the only part of the record that's warped, to put that closer to the actual kind of heat source itself. I've had, again, great success with the Record Pi. So far, I've flattened close to 10 records at this point, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but the fact that in a pretty short period of time being able to, I found that kind of my sweet spot is 133 degrees for between 3 and 4 hours, depending on the size of the warp. I did try going up to 135 degrees for that one record I was mentioning just a few minutes ago that I really, to this day, have not been able to get super flat. It still does have a bit of a warp to it. But other than that, all the other records I've done 133 degrees. It was a bit nerve-wracking to put in some of those original Blue Notes, but it was something where I kind of trusted from what I heard from other people that I knew that had the Record Pi, that they've done 3 or 4 different cycles with the same record, and then they played it, and there has not been any damage to the record, because obviously that's one of the big worries is when you heat up the records, whatever method you may use, there's always that risk of damaging the grooves. But again, I've had really great success with using this Record Pi. It's super easy to be able to set up. The directions make it super easy to use. And again, what I said, I've used 133 degrees for 3 to 4 hours, and then I will let it, I usually did it after I got home from work. So you let it heat up to the temperature. Takes about 30 to 40 minutes for the record pie itself to heat up. And then you obviously already have the record in the device itself. You just zip it up so that really the only space there is just enough for the bag, for the heating kind of cord. And then after it is done, you can actually remotely, so you don't even have to be home, you actually can turn off the device itself. And so you don't even have to be home. Now for me, again, I've always done it like just right after work. And so I've been able to do everything, and then you can just turn it off. You just unplug it. Or even there's a power button here. You just hit the power button, and then obviously you unplug it. And then they recommend that you give it 45 minutes to cool down. The first record that I flattened, I wanted to give it a little bit more time because I had heard that not only is the heating process important to try to minimize the warp size, but also that cooling down after it's been heated up is also very important to getting it flat. And so I let it sit for 2 hours, and when I pulled it out, it was definitely cooler to the touch, but I could definitely still feel a little bit of heat on it. And so it wasn't hot, but it was still a little bit, there was a little bit of warmth to it. So I usually just let it sit overnight, usually 8 to 10 hours. And then in the morning, I'll take it out and then I'll put it on the turntable to see what the improvement is. And again, I've had really great success. Other than the first record, I've been able to flatten every other one with either one cycle, which for the most part, except for one, has only taken one cycle to be able to flatten. And then I had that Frank Lowe one that I showed that took 2 cycles. So it definitely is a great investment. It's expensive, but if you're somebody that has a lot of records, and especially if with just how a lot of new records are nowadays, a lot of them you can open up and they're warped to begin with. Instead of sending them back, you have that vinyl flatten. But again, it's a great investment if you do have records that are warped. Obviously, there's no reason to buy it if you don't have records that are warped. But it is a great investment. So this is the Record Pie. The website is just recordpie.com. If you have any questions, feel free to put a comment in the video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please think about liking and subscribing. I will be back soon to show off some of my recent finds.